Alright. Going to talk about multiplying and dividing by powers of 10 today. Okay? Now, first of all, we need to understand what a power of 10 is. Okay? A power of 10 would be like this right here. Okay, those would be examples of power of 10. Now, they can also be expressed in this form. Okay, all of those are powers of 10. You will notice that there's no 2, 3, 5, 22, 23. Okay, this is not talking about when I take 22 times 21. Okay, this is I'm talking 22 times 10, 22 times 1,000, 22 times 10 to the third power. Okay, or doing the same thing division-wise. Okay, so this is like 22 divided by 10 to the third power. Okay, or 49 times 10 to the second power. Okay, those are all powers of 10. Okay, now, what we're going to find out is if I take, for example, and I multiply 4 times 10 to the first power. Okay, 4 times 10 to the first power is the same thing as 4 times 10. Which is the same thing as 40. Okay, well, let's look at 4 times 10 to the second power. Well, 4 times 10 to the second power is the same thing as 4 times 100, which is the same thing as 400. Well, what about 4 times 10 to the third power? Okay, well, that's the same thing as 4 times 1,000, which is equal to 4,000. Now, you will notice there's one exponent, and there is 1 0. There's 2 exponents. There's 2 zeros. There's 3 as an exponent, and there's 3 zeros. Okay? Now, so what you assume is that, well, I'm just adding zeros. Yeah, that's sort of correct. Okay? It's sort of correct that you're just adding zeros. All right? Now, what you're really doing is this. On each one of these, I'm taking the number 4, and I'm taking the decimal that is right here, and I'm moving it one place to the right. So I have to add a 0. So that's where I'm getting 40. Okay? I moved it one place to the right. The next one is 4, and I'm going to move the decimal once, twice to the right. So I'm going to add some zeros here, and I get 400. So the two right here represents the 2 that I moved to the right. Okay? And then the last one here, I take 4 and I move it once, twice, 3 times to the right. And that represents the 3 right there. Okay? So what you're really doing, and the reason I say this is because I'll show you an example here in just a second. You're really moving the decimal and adding zeros where necessary. Okay? Because here's why. let's say I have the number 4.25 times 10 to the third power. Okay, well that's really 4.25 times 1,000. Correct? Is that correct? Okay. Now, if I just take and do what we originally said, have I changed that number? No, that's still 4.25. Those 3 zeros at the end don't change the number because they're behind the decimal. Okay? So that would not be correct. This, once, twice, 3 times. Add a 0 because I have to at the end. Now that number, 4,250, is a different number. Okay? So that's what you're really doing when you're multiplying by a power of 10. When multiplying by a power of 10, you will move the decimal to the right the number of times of the exponent or the number of zeros in the power of 10. Okay, so let me show you one directly out of your homework. Let's see here. 5.06 times 10 to the third. Okay, so here's my exponent, 3. So I'm going to take 5.06 and move the decimal to the right once, twice, add a 0, and so that gives me 5,060 as my answer. Now, I could take and do what we did last night and multiply this by 1,000. Okay? And that would give me, I'd have a bunch of zeros here. Like that. And then I would have like that. And I have a 0, 0, 0, 6, 0, 5. And I have 2 decimal places there, 0 there for a total of 2, and go once, twice. And that would give me 5,060. Okay? But I prefer not have to do that. I prefer it to be an easier way than have to have, do all that multiplication, all that zeros, all that stuff. Okay? Now, if let me look at something here. Okay, let's say I had this. 4,295 times 10 to the third. Okay? That would be 4,295. Where's the decimal in 4,295? At the end. Because there's not one in the number itself. that means it's at the end. Now, I have a exponent of 3, so I have to move it once, twice, 3 times. Okay? And I fill in for this one, there happens to be 3 zeros. And so, therefore, $4,295,000. Emma? The only reason you'd put the decimal back is if it's still between 2 digits that aren't 0, like between a 1 and a 2. Let me give you an example. Let's say we had 5.265 times 10 to the second power. Okay, well, the exponent is 2, so I'm going to take 5.265 and move it once, twice to the right. And so that would give me 526.5. So in that case, I had to keep the decimal because I wasn't able to move it out of the number. Okay. Now, so that's multiplying. So what if I have a division problem? For example, what if I had this, 50.5 divided by 10 to the third power? Okay, so if we move it to the right when we're multiplying, what do we do when we're dividing? Move it to the left, because the division is the opposite of multiplication. Okay, now, the same is true when dividing a number by a power of 10. You will move the decimal to the left by the number of the exponent or zeros in the power of 10. Now, all the stuff you're going to be doing tonight or today is going to have exponents in it. In other words, they're not going to say 100, they're just going to say 10 to the second power. But you need to understand that it works with both things. Okay? So, then in this one, I have 50.5. My exponent is 3. So I'm going to move it once, twice, 3 times to the left. That gives me 0.0505 as my answer. Okay, let's look at another example. 622,000 divided by 10 to the fourth power. So where is my decimal in 622,000? At the end. So I'm going to move it. It's right here. I'm going to move it to the left once, twice, 3 times, 4 times. And that gives me 62.2000. Now, I don't need these zeros, so it's really 62.2, and that's my answer. Okay, do this one on your own. 1,500 divided by 10 to the second power. Use your shortcuts. Obviously, don't divide it out or multiply it out. Use your shortcuts. Who has an answer? Emma, what'd you get? Yep. So this would be 1,500. I would take the decimal and move it 2 places to the left. Okay, and that gives me 15.00. But I don't need the 00, so it's just 15. Okay. Now, I've got to throw a little fly in the ointment here. You always hate flies in your ointment. Okay. But let's remember back. We've already sort of talked about this, but I've got to remind you of it. We said that 10 to the first power is equal to 10. We said that 10 to the second power is equal to 100. Okay. Now, I don't remember which section this was in. So, I'll talk about it. I got 2 things I need to talk about. So, what is 10 to the negative first power? No, that's what people always do. They try to make it. No, it has to be something involving the number 10. Okay, 10 to the negative first power is 1 over 10. Okay, because we said let's put them in order. We said that 10 to the first is 10. We said 10 to the 0 is 1. Okay, so 10 to the negative first has to be less than 1. So 10 to the negative first is 1 over 10. 10 to the negative second is 1 over 100. 10 to the negative third is 1 over 1,000. Okay? Now, that gets us into our little bit of a complication. Our fly in the ointment, as I said. So if we have 8,000 times 10 to the negative 2 power. Okay? So bear with me here. Write it down, but bear with me. So this is 8,000 times 1 over 100, right? Correct? Okay. Which is the same thing as 8,000 over 100. Well, isn't this division? Isn't 8,000 over 100 the same thing as 8,000 divided by 100? Aren't those the same? Yes or no? I need responses when I ask questions, except when I'm talking to Brandon. Okay, so what do we do with the decimal when we're dividing? Which way do we move it? To the left, the number of zeros, or the exponent, right? So I have 1, 2 zeros. So that means I'm going to take 8,000 and move the decimal once, twice. which would give me 80. So, this right here okay, we're going to move it to the left for a negative exponent when you're multiplying. Because isn't a negative exponent the opposite of a positive exponent? It is. I'll help you with that one. Okay? Negatives and positives are opposite of each other. So if on a positive exponent we move it to the right, then for a negative exponent we have to move it to the left. Okay? Now, you won't have any, I'm checking to make sure, you won't have any negative exponents when you're dividing. Okay? You'll just have positive ones. Okay, so let me look at one other one like that. I found one. There was one back here. If we have 57,000 times 10 to the negative first power. Okay, that means move the decimal to the left one spot. So I take 57,000, the decimal is at the end, and I move it one spot to the left. And that gives me 5,700. So the last two examples I want to do. $56.5 times 10 to the 0 power. So how many places am I going to move the decimal? Huh? None. So my answer is, okay. And mathematically, why that's true is because we said 10 to the 0 power is equal to what? What? 1. So what is 56.5 times 1? 56.5. Okay. Same thing is true here. 56.5 divided by 10 to the 0 power. That's just 56.5. Okay, so if we go back up here to our example, up at the very, very top, so here, move the decimal 0 times, move the decimal 1, move the decimal 2, move the decimal 3, move the decimal 4, okay? Now, which way you move it depends upon whether you're multiplying or dividing, okay? But on each one of these, you have 0 here. I have 1 here because of the 1 0 and that exponent of 1. I have 2 here because of those 2 zeros and the exponent of 2. I have 3 here because of the 3 zeros and the exponent of 3. I have 4 here because of the 4 zeros and the 4. I have 5 here because of the 5 zeros and the 5 exponent. Okay? So, your homework, 7.3. Three through 8, and 15 through 41. Now, everybody look at page 158. Everybody open your books and look at page 158. Okay? Look at number 31. Okay, they draw that little table. They have the table like this. They have input. They have output. Then they have like 31, 32, 33. And then they put 32 in here. And they say the rule is multiply by 10 to the second. So they want me, in other words, right here, they want me to take 32 times 10 to the second. What's 32 times 10 to the second? What? Yeah. 3,200. Now they have 0.008. Okay, this one's a little harder. We said this is equal to 3,200. What they're saying here is I'm going to take and multiply something times 10 to the second and get 0.008. Okay, so I had to move it to the right, correct? I had to move it to the right. So if I moved it here, I have to move it backwards to figure out what the original number was. So the original number then was 0.00008. Okay? So I had to move it backwards. So I'm going from the answer to the original problem. Okay, so this would be your answer. This would be your answer. Number 33 says 1.08. So I take 1.08 times 10 to the second power, which gives me what? What does it give me? There's a 2. So what do? I move it once, twice. $108. Okay, so that's what you're doing on those problems. Okay, for 40 and 41, everybody see the stack of money in the little table down at the bottom of page 158? That's what you use for 40 and 41. Okay? All right, got about 5 minutes left. Go ahead and start that stuff. Go ahead and start the work.